What's happening, people? It's time to fix the CLA45. In the last video, we showed you the CLA45s we bought from the car crash auction website, and then we stripped everything off to reveal the extent of the damage. And now we get to the good part where we're going to attempt to fix this at home. Yes, crash damaged CLA45s with frame damage. So make sure you watch the full video to find out how well we did or how well we didn't. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you check out the last video. But for now, let's get to rebuilding this car. And before we get to the pulling process, I need to remove a few more bits from the boot. You can see there's loads of modules, there's a speaker, there's some more boot lining that we need to remove. But you can already tell the boot floor has folded in itself, so we'll need to pull all of that out. And now that everything is out, all we're left with is a bunch of wires, and the boot floor is looking a lot clean. Surprisingly, the damage is not as bad as I thought, so it's folded in on the lower part, but the upper part is all fine. As you can see, this carpet is even reusable. I might have to iron it out a bit. And after removing a lot more wires from the boot lid and removing the boot lid itself, we can move on to the exhaust, because once the car is raised and is set up to start the pulling of the frame on the frame machine, the exhaust will not be accessible. So we'll have to do that before we can move on to the framework and the pulling. Alright guys, the exhaust is off. We're going to take it out from underneath the car. We've also raised the car quite a bit and put on the jigging clamps along with the pole that the jig is going to push up against. The frame machine clamps onto the sills of a car, but on the Mercedes, those sills are hidden behind rocker covers, or you can call them side skirts, I guess. So we have to remove those before setting that up. I have the jig all set up. Now I'm going to take off this crash bar. On most cars, the crash bar is probably one of the easiest things to remove. Obviously, once everything else around it has been removed, it's usually 4 or 3 bolts on each side. In this case, it was only 3, but the bottom bolts, the bottom end of the crash bar was bent in, and that was holding the crash bar so tight to the chassis that we had to grind parts of it off and then pry it out just to release it, and that allowed us to remove it. With the crash bar off, you can see the chassis legs are looking good, all straight from inside. This is obviously a thin piece that we can pull out. I'll probably put a hook on it and just pull it from there. And the same goes on this side as well. Front setup, I have the jig behind the car, and that is chained onto a seat belt, which is holding a pole on this side here. So when you're trying to pull out a material like this, aluminium is very, very thin. So when you start pulling, you can potentially start damaging other areas. So you always have to adjust how you pull and where you pull from. So this was my first pull, and I mean, it was coming out, but I was also starting to see the middle crease a bit. So I changed my placement of the seatbelt and the pole, so it pushes. The force is then directed at the center, and it pulls all sides equally, which worked quite well actually. Pulled quite a bit of this tub out now from underneath. The next part is probably hard to see in the camera, but this is dented in. That affects the lining of the boot lid. So I'm just trying to work out what is the best way to pull this out. So I've got a couple of ideas. I can either weld something on here and then clamp onto that and pull it, or I can maybe drill a hole and put something in the hole and pull that. So I ended up just cutting out a small window that we could use to put something behind and pull that, and we'll get the body shop to patch it up later. Cut a window over here. I slid in a little pole that goes towards the left side and the right side, and then I've tied a seat belt to that, which is obviously attached to the jig over here. This should let me pull both sides at once, so hopefully they pull out equally. This window over here, this piece of metal over here, I can just bend that back into place and then weld around the edges, and it should be good to go from there. Alright, that worked out pretty well. I don't know how good it came out in the video, but a lot of it just simply popped back into place. Now I just need to pull this part slightly down. I know all of it is black and it's hard to see, but there is a slight little dent there that we need to pull down. And then there's also a dent here, so I'm going to put the hinges on next, the boot lid on next, and then I'll finally pull this out. But otherwise, looking pretty good. I mean, it's all popping out. And then the last challenge is going to be just welding this back on. Look at that, guys. This is the situation sometimes you get into when you're rebuilding cars. So this is the bottom of the hinges. There's no clear bolts to unbolt them. Mercedes, I mean, could have easily made simple bolts that would screw in there, but instead they put threads on the actual hinges that go through, and there's a nut on the other side that you tighten them with. And let me just show you how we're going to get to that. This is the parcel shelf that we'll have to take off. We got the parcel shelf out, or whatever you call it on these saloons. The next bit, so the bolts are hidden behind this sound insulation. And for the bolt, we've got more space than I thought. So this is why we have to replace the hinges. So as you can see, this is the original one. That's the actual damage, whereas this is the new one, perfectly straight. Just test fitting the bumper, obviously just for the alignment. Ignore all of them scratches, most of them are storage marks, but we are going to repaint the whole bumper, so it should not be an issue. Check this out. So we've pulled it quite a bit, obviously, from both sides, but the middle needs some more pulling. So we've done a bit more lining and pulling off camera just to get it right. And I think we got pretty close. We cut another window out, and I sealed them up with some tiger seal for the time being until that gets taken to the body shop, and we'll show you how they patch everything up. And yeah, so now I think we can fit the crash bar and see how everything lines up. That's the crash bar on. I mean, we don't have to, pull it to the left or the right, mess about with the leverage and all of that. It just slipped right on. You know what? The crash bar is undamaged, so that pretty much tells me the chassis legs are exactly where they're meant to be. Now the second bit I'm worried about now, I've already test fitted the bumper and the top part lines up almost bang on. I just need to mess about with these little thin seals. Alright guys, so we've done most of the bits we needed to for the jigging. Now we are going to fit all of the parts on. Obviously, it's pretty much everything in reverse. We're going to fit the bumper on. We're going to have to fit the brackets on before that bumper. And then the inside, as you can see, is all stripped apart. It's like putting a little jigsaw puzzle back together. Alright guys, so this is where we've got to so far. I know the carpet's a bit bent up, but should be alright. The main issue is also ripped up from here, but yeah, it shouldn't be an issue. So yeah, this is everything back together. It's finally time to put the bumper back on. Obviously we've been messing about with it just to align everything. Now I'm sure we're ready to put it on for real. It's going to come off again, obviously, for respray, but we just want to see the car complete before we send it off. That's one of the only things we can't do at home. Yeah, bumper will be coming off again. Yeah, let's put it into here. We'll hold the bumper on the side. The bumper is slightly damaged from there. Shouldn't be an issue, the body shop will fix it. Guys, that is the bumper on. So these gaps over here, I was worried that it's not actually lining up, and it turns out that is completely normal, and I'm going to show you why. Alright, sorry about the mess, and it's a bit dark outside, but I've got one of my friends' Mercedes CLA. It's not an AMG, but you can see pretty much the exact same gap. Now there's this part obviously covered, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's not something you see in the VW Audi world, but I guess this is how Mercedes designed their cars. But yeah, I guess all of it is hidden by this massive thick pipe that goes over it, so shouldn't be an issue. That's the car ready to be sent to the body shop now. We've lined up the panels best as we could. We've done the framework as much as we could with pretty much no experience, so they'll perfect it. They'll also respray it. We left the boot, we just taped up the boot because we didn't want to connect up any of the wires, and left the headlights because they'll come off anyways. We've also put the exhaust on just so we can drive it onto the recovery truck. It just makes life easier. But overall, I think this wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, and I'm pretty happy with it. And that is a wrap for this video. Thank you all for watching. I know it was a pretty straightforward video. Honestly, it went better than I thought. I thought it was going to be an epic failure, us trying framework at home. But you saw, I mean, we didn't do too bad. It needs that professional touch. I mean, it is an expensive car. I think the undamaged ones go for about £50,000. So yeah, we'll take you in the next episode to our body shop. The body shop that we work with quite closely. We'll film everything they do as well, and then when the car's ready, we got a surprise for you guys. If you remember in the last video, we were coming up with theories on what actually happened to the car, and I think we figured it out. But anyways, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. We are a tiny channel, so any support is appreciated, and it goes a long way in helping us grow. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Trust me, it's going to be a good one, so I'll catch you then.